What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now we're going to be talking Path of Exile again today. Now, I've made some videos in the past talking about game balance, things I think that need to be changed, removed, added, whatever. Today is going to be kind of in the similar line of that. Now, Path of Exile, I believe probably one of the biggest problems with it is that it's just getting too bloated. There's just too many things, too many layers, too many skills, too many everything. And that eventual bloat creep where it eventually leads to the point where there's just so many different things happening in a game, you kind of lose track of what's good, what's bad, what actually works, and which is basically just a functional reprint of the same thing, but is just 10 times better due to some random mechanic change of a skill or an item. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna add more bloat on top of it. Yeah, we're not talking about removing things because historically speaking, Path of Exile and the developers Grinding Gear Games has kind of showed that it doesn't really like to remove things. It more or less likes to try to add solutions to a problem. So in today's video, we're going to be going over 3 gems that I have theory crafted to maybe fill in some niches that I want to see filled. Spoiler alert, it's mostly melee stuff. I'm a melee guy. I think spell casting is extremely overrated in Path of Exile, and I want my melee bros that aren't playing Spectral Helix specifically to feel a little bit better. If you guys like this video and want to see more content like it, remember to subscribe down below, hit the bell and the like button right down there as well. We go live every day on twitch.tv/Drydick_TV every day at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Without further ado, let's jump in this video. Let's go! So if anyone is familiar with my channel, you know that I make a lot of videos about Project Ascension and custom content that I kind of theory craft to fill in niches that I think need to be filled, or stuff that would just be cool to add to the game that would encourage a different type of playstyle. And I don't see any other content creators doing stuff like this. So my initial thought for this video is like, hey, let's see if Path of Exile community is receptive of this kind of thing and see if we can, start some discussion on some maybe cool custom things that the player base comes up with, and these are kind of my 3 attempts at doing that. To start things off right, let's talk about an aura, and I named this Shackle Breaker. It is an aura spell AoE, reserves 35% mana, and has a radius of 36, requires level 24 and 58 strength to use. Now, before going any further, all these numbers obviously can be changed. This is just kind of what I thought might be acceptable, but, balance things are not my forte specifically. I just want to get my ideas out there to see what you guys think. So going forward, Shackle Breaker has a plus 0 to 19 radius. You and nearby allies are unaffected by all slowing effects. You and nearby allies can have a maximum of 110% base action speed with an additional effects from quality, increasing that cap up by another 5% maximum action speed. So the original idea of this aura is kind of going back to what Ziggy D said on one of the Bayclast podcasts. The game has too many fun taxes, and this is kind of my idea of getting rid of that. So the first line, you and nearby allies are unaffected by all slowing effects, and I mean all slowing effects. Maim, hinder, chill, freeze, curses, literally any slowing effect in the game, you are unaffected by. You're not immune to it, but you are unaffected by that. So that is a good defensive bonus because it removes so many of these like random things that make your character feel terrible to play, but it also takes away some of the scaling. You can't do reverse chill. You can't do self curses, things like this. So being unaffected by all slowing effects is a upside and a downside. The other one, you and nearby allies can have a maximum of 110% base action speed. Now, I didn't really know how to word this specifically, but basically what I wanted to make sure of is even though you're unaffected by slowing effects and the reversal of those to get like crazy haste effects, I wanted this to be a somewhat okay haste buff as well, but I don't want it to get out of control. This is kind of like the parody aura where it just takes everything and just levels it back out so you have control back of your character without getting absurd. So the maximum of 110% base action speed. So what I mean by that is you can't go super fast, and that includes things like Quicksilver. Now, I don't know how Quicksilver actually functions. I know that movement speed bonuses are a a factor in base action speed, but I don't know if one is a function of the other. I'm sure you guys understand more than I do, but I believe that movement speed is a function of base action speed as well, and capping it at 115 if this thing were 20% quality would basically limit how fast you can go up to a certain point with things like haste effects and, you know, movement speed and action speed increases, but this would remove all slowing effects from the game, because if there's anything that removes the fun out of Path of Exile quicker is having zero control of what your character is doing. Losing control of your character sucks, and Path of Exile is getting inundated with these type of effects, and this is kind of my answer to that problem. The next one I want to talk about is a support for melee. It's called Blood Fueled Barrier. Cost and reservation multiplier 130%. It is a support attack melee gem. Requires level 70, all that stuff. Doesn't really matter. Again, this is theoretical. This is just going over the mechanics that I had an idea for in these gems. Supports any melee skill that hits enemies. Supported skills sacrifice 2% of your maximum health or energy shield on hit up to a maximum of 10%. While affected by the barrier, all damage from hits is reduced by 100 per 1% maximum health or energy shield sacrifice. Before moving on to the things down below, what I mean by up to a maximum of 10% is you can only ever sacrifice up to 10% of your maximum HP, not 10% per hit. It is locked at 2% of maximum HP or energy shield per hit, but you can only have a blood fueled barrier that is equal to 10% of your maximum health. Okay, so that's what I mean by that. Supported skills deal 4 to 24% increased damage. Supported skills have 1 to 10% more attack speed while not on full life or energy shield. Supported skills cannot be used while reserving your health or energy shield. That was kind of a balancing mechanism because I didn't want people just, if you're using what is it called, petrified blood, just to have like an extra layer of defense. So you can't use that with things like petrified blood and whatnot, or blood magic. This is specifically for just like the traditional melee guy who reserves his mana for his auras, but needs a little bit of extra tankiness, okay? The additional effects from quality, 0 to 50 increased damage reduction per 1% maximum health or energy shield sacrifice. So this basically takes this from 100 to 150 per 1%, okay? So at max, you get 1,000 or 1,500 damage taken off each hit that you take, okay? Now, depending on how they do calculations in Path of Exile, whether it's a pre or post multiplier on the equation, what I mean by that is, let's say you have a hit that does 10,000 damage, okay? And you have 50% damage mitigation. That moves it down to 5,000. And then if you have a shield that's taking off another 1,500 or 1,000 in this case, it moves the total damage value down to 4,000. So depending on where in that equation it lands, it can change what's more powerful. Typically, a post multiplier is more powerful than a pre multiplier. So if you think about this, if you have a hit that's 10,000, then you remove 1,000 from the total value before multipliers, then you multiply it by 0.5 or reduce it by half, you're then only getting 4,500 damage versus 4,000. So depending on where that multiplication or that, so depending on where that 1,000 damage is getting taken out of the equation, this could be a very, very powerful tool and kind of incentivize people to get in there and actually keep attacking and not have to worry so much about these crazy, overwhelming swarms of attacks. Because outside of like very big telegraphed attacks that people are like dying because the screen is just so bloated with stuff that they can't really keep track of things like that, a lot of the times I feel like my characters are dying because of a billion tiny hits. So being able to reduce flat damage is much more impactful than percentages. The last one I want to talk about is another support for melee. It's called Stand and Deliver. It is a support melee attack. Cost and reservation multiplier 115%. Requires level 18 and 38 dexterity to use. So if you read the first part, supports any melee skill that hits enemies. Supported skills cause monsters that are not hit by your attacks to be pulled towards an enemy, a nearby monster that was hit, Cannot support skills that's supported by totems, mines, or traps. Cannot support slam skills. Now, the reason I did that is because slam skills have AoE, and you sacrifice attack speed for big upfront hits, but at a slower cost. I didn't want this to be kind of an ability for Like the reverse knockback on the Emperor's Graft, I think is a cool mechanic, but you have to give up that gem slot or that gear slot, and usually knockback, reverse knockback isn't that impactful. What my idea for this is originally to be able to hit 2 or 3 monsters and slowly pull monsters in. Not only are they going to be being pulled in so you can hit more monsters and clear the screen faster, they're actually getting micro stutters as they're coming in. So it is a defensive mechanic on top of that, because let's say you hit 3 monsters in front of you and there's 10 guys behind you. If they're mid attack and then they get pulled in, even if it's just like a little bit, it is a defensive mechanic as well. It's kind of like stunning monsters. So it helps clear in the fact that you don't actually clear more monsters per attack. You eventually pull things in, but it is also a defensive layer as well. So if you look at the second part of this gem, supported skills deal 4 to 14% more damage. So it's a little bit of a damage increase, not super heavy, but this is where the real power of the skill comes in. Supported skills have their damage repeated to 0 to 3 nearby enemies. Now this isn't replicating the attack again, kind of like ancestral attack. It's actually rolling the damage again on nearby enemies. Now that can be really, really powerful, because I don't know exactly how Ancestral Call or things that repeat skills to things around it work, but I imagine it re-rolls the skill and all the damage values, crit values, lucky values that go along with that, calculating damage. What this does is it hits a monster, and then that damage is then repeated to things around it. So it will kind of incentivize using bigger hits, but not necessarily slower hits, if that makes sense, okay? And then the big one, additional effects from quality, 0 to 5% chance for repeated attacks to strike the same enemy. Now, the reason like Lightning Strike is super popular is because if you use things like Ancestral Call, you can line it up to where you're hitting the monster with the main attack, but then you're also hitting them with the Ancestral Call, basically doubling your damage. So I kind of wanted this to be shades of that, but not as explicitly broken. Now, I don't know how crazy it would be if, let's say, you roll the high dice and the 3 nearby enemies rolls in your favor 3 times. So you basically hit the monster 4 times in one attack. I don't know how broken that would be. It'd probably be silly broken, but it would allow for more AoE clear, but also giving you some defensive bonuses as well. And seeing how the game is going, more and more monsters are likely to show up in future leagues. So I want stuff that's more defensive and offensive based versus just strictly offense or strictly defense. As far as the video is concerned, that's going to be all. Only 3 gems to go over today. What did you guys think about this video? Now, I know that the number values and the mechanics might be a little insane, but I don't really see anybody leveraging ideas to fix current problems in Path of Exile. They just look at what's in the game and, you know, discuss internally or even, you know, on different social media on how to fix the game in its current environment. But I just can't see, if things continue the way they are, certain mechanics are unfixable because they have such downstream effects on so many different systems in the game. And Grinding Gear Games has kind of showed historically that they're more inclined to add more tools versus taking mechanics away for you to deal with. And with that, this video is done, guys. Remember to subscribe below for more content. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!